As the lights went down and the movie began to play, the only thing that went through my head was...
It's showtime.
Hello everyone and welcome to Rewind Reviews. In this video I'm taking a look at the long overdue and eagerly anticipated sequel to the Tim Burton classic, and that is Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Released in 2024, the follow-up to the 1988 comedy horror picks up after a tragedy in the family where 3 generations of the Deetz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by the ghost with the most, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter, Astrid, accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. Once again directed by Tim Burton and written by Seth Grahame-Smith, Alfred Gough and Miles Millar, the movie stars Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Jenna Ortega, Justin Theroux, Willem Dafoe, Arthur Conti and Monica Bellucci. Okay, first things first, am I allowed to say the name again after already saying it 2 times earlier, because this is going to get very awkward if I can't. Okay, according to the internet, the musical states that you can say the name 3 times, as long as it's not spoken unbroken, so let's test that, shall we? Okay, moment of truth. Hang on. Just in case. Right, 3, 2, 1. Beetlejuice! Okay, we're safe, we're good to go, but let's just tread lightly from now on. So let's begin. Okay, so first things first, when it comes to the original movie, I first saw it back when I was in my teenage years, and unfortunately the first time I saw it, it was the TV-friendly version of it, so I was kind of deprived of the poetry of...
Nice fucking model!
And this scene...
We just have to pray the other closets are bigger than this one.
But even so, I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun with a brilliant cast, killer soundtrack from Danny Elfman, and had that unique early Tim Burton flair. It's not a flawless movie by any means, and there are things and effects that don't quite hold up and do look a little bit dated, but the energy, creativity and practical stuff more than holds up and keeps you invested even after multiple rewatches. But when that movie ended, I thought that was it. I know there was an animated series at one point in time, which I personally haven't seen, and I haven't seen the musical either, but as for an actual sequel, that just didn't seem to be happening. There was a lot of rumours and speculation about a sequel potentially being in development, but those rumours and all that speculation, it just never seemed to come to fruition until we got that official announcement. And when the announcement was made, I'll admit I was quite excited about it, but I was also quite sceptical as well. It's not that I didn't have any faith in it being good, I just didn't think that they were going to be able to recapture the energy nor the imagination that the first movie had. So I'm happy to report that even though this movie does have its problems, this is so much fun, and it does feel like a proper return to form for Tim Burton. The story this time around catches up with the Deetz family 36 years after the events of the first film, where a family tragedy brings Lydia, her stepmother Delia, and her estranged daughter Astrid back to Winter River. But when Lydia discovers the town model in their old attic, all of their lives are turned upside down as a portal to the afterlife is opened, and the mischievous demon Beetlejuice, who is also facing his own problems in the shape of his vengeful ex-wife Dolores, makes his chaotic return. So there is a lot more going on in this movie compared to the first film, with several different subplots all happening at the same time. And while there is some overlap between those stories and they do all culminate together in a pretty mad finale, I do think that the movie does come across as a little bit unbalanced. And it can be a little bit messy as well. I have heard a lot of reviewers talking about this movie and the multiple subplots that are introduced. And one consistent thing that I have seen a lot of them say is that you could literally cut out the entire murder mystery subplot and all the stuff with Beetlejuice's ex-wife, and nothing would change. And I didn't really want to say this, but after thinking about it, I think you actually could. But that being said, you'd miss out on some pretty great things like Beetlejuice's backstory, the best effects-driven sequence of the entire film that I am still trying to get my head around, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, and a really entertaining performance from Willem Dafoe. Yes, this does have some pacing issues. It starts off quite slow at the beginning and it does get quite fast towards the end. Yes, it does feel rushed and it does feel a little bit undercooked at times, and yes, there are things that happen in this movie that are left unresolved. Like all the chaos that happens during the finale, and a load of it is just kind of left unresolved, and it's just like, what happened next? There are some repeated elements from the first movie that do make a comeback in this one, and there is one very big twist that they do introduce in this movie that I saw a mile away. But this is so much fun, has a good few surprises, it does make sure to be its own thing, and it is so entertaining that I don't think that a lot of that stuff will bother you. This is pure entertainment, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And a huge reason for that is the cast, especially the return of Michael Keaton as the ghost with the most. The first time I saw Michael Keaton in this role, I genuinely genuinely could not believe that it was him, especially since my only exposure to him prior to seeing him in this role was in the Batman movies. In this, he is just bursting with energy once again, slipping back into this role with ease and maintaining both the physical and vocal performance that he gave in the first film. He is excellent overall and so much fun to watch. He has not been toned down at all. He does still feel like the same character with a very similar motivation, only this time he's got someone after him. I was quite surprised seeing that this movie does cover his backstory, and you see how both he and Dolores meet, and I did kind of like it. It's a very weird scene, but it is memorable and unique. I don't think that everyone is going to like it, but I did think that it was a good and twisted scene. Beetlejuice is amazing in this movie once again. He's got a little bit more screen time this time around, so you do get to explore him a little bit more, which I did appreciate. But I did like that he doesn't completely dominate the movie and that the other characters do get a decent amount of screen time each. Obviously, Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara are back as Lydia Deetz and her stepmother Delia. They're the only returning characters in this, which is a little bit disappointing as Barbara and Adam, played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, were pretty integral parts of the original. I understand that there is a lot happening in this movie and it wouldn't really make sense to bring those two characters into this as well, but it is disappointing, and the reason why they're not featured in this movie is kind of flimsy. Anyway, performance-wise, both Winona and Catherine are excellent once again, and I really like where they take the characters. They do feel true and authentic to who these characters are and where they are when we catch up with them. In my opinion, it does make sense. There's only a few decisions that I wasn't really on board with, especially one which came out of absolutely nowhere, but I really enjoyed what these characters do and the performances that the actors both give. And that absolutely extends to all the newcomers as well, including Jenna Ortega as Astrid. She is genuinely great overall. I do like the twist that they take with how different she is to her family and the way that she's a bit more logical and bases everything on facts and what she can see. I'm also very happy to say that they don't just get her to play Wednesday Addams again, which I did think was a possibility. There is a few echoes of Wednesday Addams in this performance. They even do another dance sequence with her again, but for the most part she does feel like a completely different character. I did like Astrid overall as a character. She does add a little bit of heart and groundedness to the story, even if there is a few moments featuring her character that do feel either a little bit convenient or a little bit predictable. But Jenna Ortega is really great overall, and I did like the character. That's honestly the same for most of the other characters as well. Like Rory, played brilliantly by Justin Theroux, who is a load of fun to watch and delightfully hateable. Arthur Conti was alright as a character that strikes up a potential romance with Astrid called Jeremy, who I didn't mind, but his story and how it connects together with the wider plot, it is predictable and a bit too fast. Plus, I really enjoyed Willem Dafoe as a former actor turned cop called Wolf Jackson. He was just a joy to watch, and I did enjoy some of the running jokes with him. And Monica Bellucci as Beetlejuice's ex-wife Dolores, who does have a pretty intense presence to her despite not being too important to the plot. She honestly was a lot scarier than I was expecting her to be, and she does get a few fun jump scares. Performance-wise, she's great, but, and this does extend to Willem Dafoe as well, they definitely could have done a lot more with her. That is something that I do tend to forget when it comes to the first movie, that even though it is usually considered a comedy first and foremost, it does still have a lot of horror elements and scary moments, and that is the same case for this one. It is classified as a comedy first and foremost, albeit quite a dark one, but it does still have a lot of horror elements. But I don't feel like the horror is too overpowering in this, and it is balanced out quite well with a lot of drama and comedy, just like the first movie was. What did surprise me though was the level of gore that is featured in this. I really was not expecting just how gory and gross this one would be, especially when you see all the mauled and disfigured characters in the afterlife. There were moments in this movie that genuinely made me question how the hell this movie got away with being a 12A rating, considering that up until recently the first film has always been rated a 15, because this does manage to get away with a lot more than you'd think. I know it's become a bit of a regular thing on this channel where I do criticise the rating that the BBFC have chosen for each movie that has come out this year, but I did feel like I did need to mention it for this one. The only reason I can think of when it comes to how this movie was rated a 12A is because the movie doesn't take itself too seriously, and it does sprinkle in a lot of comedy. The comedy, I'll admit, didn't always work for me, but there are some moments, usually involving either Michael Keaton or Catherine O'Hara, that were absolutely hysterical. Or what happens with one character that I don't really want to spoil, but the detail that goes into what happened to them and the aftermath of it, it's really messed up, but it is so funny. It is dark, it is a very darkly comic movie, but it does help break up the more horror-oriented elements. To me, this is the perfect movie to watch over Halloween, not just because the film takes place during Halloween, but because it does provide enough scares, laughs and drama to keep the family entertained. Just make sure that your kids can handle this before letting them see it. There's nothing so bad in this that it might traumatise them, but I would stress caution. One thing I kept hearing about when they were developing this movie was the fact that they were going to go back to doing what it is that they did in the first movie and have this be a practical practically oriented film. Now, it's not to say that they don't use any visual effects or CGI whatsoever throughout this movie, but I was genuinely amazed just how practical this movie actually was. There is so much stuff that they do in this for real. The effects overall are brilliant, and I love what they've been able to do, from the creatures, demons, costumes, makeup effects, the real sets and locations. They all look excellent and highly detailed. What they've been able to do in this movie and how it is that they go about bringing a lot of this stuff to life is so effective, and it is so clever as well. Especially what they do with Dolores, who is basically a live action version of Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas, who can literally suck the life force out of you. There's a scene where she rebuilds herself, and while it is a little bit longer than it really needs to be, it is so clever that I am genuinely still trying to get my head around how they did it. It's not too far off how they bring Thing to life in The Addams Family and Wednesday, but it is a lot more extreme than that. And it's quite funny as well, because when you do see her actually bringing herself together, she starts using the staples and basically staples herself back together. I did say the humour was dark, but I do like that we do get to spend a little bit more time in the afterlife this time around. The characters do get dragged into the afterlife, and we get to see a lot more of the characters that live there. Plus, we also get to explore the different environments a little bit more outside of just the office or the deserts. It's brilliantly well realised and highly detailed, especially what it is that they do to bring a lot of these characters to life, like Bob, who's one of the shrunken head characters. One thing I was quite surprised to see in this movie was the fact that they do go back to Tim Burton's roots a little bit more, and they do incorporate a lot of stop motion animation. It's more so when it comes to the sandworm sequences, but this movie does have a few other characters that are brought to life purely through stop motion animation, and they look great. Honestly, in my opinion, I think it looks a lot better in this movie compared to the first movie, and I do think that it is incorporated and included a lot better. It looks so much more fluid and better than ever before. It is genuinely impressive how they brought this movie and these characters to life, and the movie does definitely benefit because of it. Not only does this movie return to being practical, but it's also a return to Tim Burton's visual style. Tim Burton hasn't really directed a movie like this in quite some time. I think Wednesday the series is probably the closest that we've really gotten in recent years. This one really feels like classic Tim Burton, balancing dark, twisted and light gothic imagery and designs with quirky and colourful elements. It looks amazing and makes great use of light and shadows, especially during some of the more creative sequences, including one bit that's completely black and white and done in the style of an old-fashioned foreign movie. Because why not? This is such a good-looking movie. The sets are creative, the designs are imaginative, and there is always something eye-catching. And lastly, Danny Elfman returns to compose the score, and in my opinion, this is one of his strongest in years. The soundtrack is brilliant overall, and it sounded absolutely amazing on the cinema. In all honesty, the sound design in general sounded absolutely amazing, especially on the Dolby system. There's a really good mix of fun and quirky new themes and a load of older nostalgic ones as well. And I've got to say, I love the updated Beetlejuice theme as well. That is honestly one of my favourite Danny Elfman themes, and I'm happy that they didn't muck around with it too much. And yes, they do include a mixture of songs as well, and I really like the choices. It's got stuff from Scott Weiland, Richard Marx, the Bee Gees, that was fun. There's a song from Tess Parks that's featured on the official soundtrack, which I really liked. Plus, they do have a really fun reprisal of Day-O. They're integrated into this really well. I do think that they're timed very well with what's going on screen, and I do think that they do make those sequences a lot more memorable. Plus, there's a few really fun dance sequences in this that made me smile as well. Overall, look, I can't deny that this does have problems, but to be honest, I had a blast with this. This is an incredibly fun movie that boasts an amazing cast who are all having an absolute ball being a part of this. An amazing visual style and flair. The effects are spectacular and look fantastic. And the soundtrack from Danny Elfman is one of his best in years. Yes, it does have pacing issues. The comedy for me didn't always land. And yes, the story is a bit messy and disjointed with elements that probably could have been removed, but I can't deny how entertaining I found this. It feels like old school Tim Burton, and if you are a fan of his older work, I would definitely say that this is worth checking out. It's not going to be a film for everyone, but I would encourage you to at least give this one a go. But make sure that you see the first movie first. I really had fun with this. I am definitely adding this to my Halloween watch list alongside the first movie, and I'm really looking forward to rewatching it. So with all that being said, my rating for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is a 7 out of 10. I really don't know if we are potentially going to see a third movie or not in this franchise, but the ending does leave things quite open for a potential follow-up. To be honest, I thought the ending was really confusing, but I don't know what else they could really do with this franchise, so I guess we'll see what happens. Oh god, what are they going to call it? Well, I think that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video, so if you have watched this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and be sure to hit that notification button. If you have seen Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Plus, if you have any suggestions for any future Rewind reviews you would like to see me do, let me know down below. Halloween is just around the corner, so keep an eye out for my Halloween-themed videos very soon. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. See you guys.